Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We are joined now by Stephen Mollura, who is going to be presenting, hello, Petrified of Saying No and People Pleasing, which I think is something that leads on perfectly from Devon's presentation on conscious uncoupling and having the strength to move forward in relationships and set boundaries and do things in a calm, confident, and secure manner. So I'm very much looking forward to this. How are you, Stephen?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Leah?
Good, very good. It's getting a little bit warm in here, but I see my face is starting to get shiny. But very good. The event's been wonderful so far. We've heard from Nadej, been talking about self-pleasure, and as I said, Devon with conscious uncoupling. So it's been full of wonderful information, and I'm sure this next presentation will be just as fantastic.
Cool. All right. Want me to take it away?
Absolutely.
All right. So, hi, everyone. I'm Stephen Mollura, owner of Prosperity Counseling and Coaching, and very happy to be a pineapple support therapist. So, let's get started. I'm going to be talking to you about the power of the word no. We'll be talking a lot about the psychological concepts around personality, around FOMO, some things around that. And then we'll get outside of Professor Steve mode and see how this actually happens in real life. So, first thing I want you to know about is Big Five personality traits. And so let's see if I can actually share screen. And so here's just a quick graphic of some of the Big Five personality traits. Openness, you might have heard this as ocean. So openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. We're mostly going to be focusing on agreeableness and openness. So agreeableness is really just what it says. Agreeableness is trust, altruism, kindness, affection. If you're high on agreeableness, you can be maybe a people pleaser or you're very compliant, but generally you want to cooperate with people. If you're lower on agreeableness, you might be more competitive with others. And if you're very low on agreeableness, maybe you don't care about other people in general and you have very little empathy. Now, when I talk to people about this, a lot of times they immediately jump to the conclusion, well, Steve, shouldn't everyone want to be most agreeable and high level of this? And it's like, yeah, cool, until you need to tell someone to shut up or tell them no. So sometimes we're going to get to this, but the idea is like, yeah, you can be highly agreeable. You can say, hey, I care about other people and I care about what they think of me, or I care about keeping the peace between us. But the idea is hopefully we have some ability to say no, set boundaries, and set consequences. We'll also be talking about openness, which is curiosity, creativity, preference for novelty, and we'll be exploring what some of that means in a minute. So, we'll also be talking a little bit about boundaries. Boundaries are, hey, this is a line you are not going to cross. If you want to remain friends with me, if you want me to be in your life, you're not going to do X, Y, and Z. You do it, you get a warning, and then you get a consequence. And you'll hear me say this later, but boundaries without consequences are air. They're nothing. If you have a boundary, but there's no consequence to it, even if the consequence is just, hey, don't do that again, it's not going to work out for you. So, saying no. Why is it so hard? And by the way, if there's any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, or Leah, if you get any, feel free to interrupt me. So, why is it so hard to say no? Well, we're all very, socially organized people. We like to have friends. We like to have coworkers and family members. And generally, we want to keep that as peaceful, or at the very least, as calm as possible. Generally, some people like fighting, but let's assume we don't. The idea, though, is if someone comes up to you and says, hey, can you do X, Y, and Z for me? And you really don't want to. Maybe you're a people pleaser and you say to yourself, even though I don't want to, I'm going to say, yes, I will do it. And I'm doing this to keep the other person happy. I hate this because I used to be like this. And it's terrible and it didn't help me. And let me lower this lighting just to make sure I'm not too overexposed. But all right. So the idea is, yeah, it's okay to care about what other people think, and you don't have to be as heartless as I am. But you have to say, wait a minute, when I actually don't want to do something, I at the very least need to learn how to negotiate. And that's a very, very hard thing for people to understand because maybe they're very, very empathetic. So I'm going to describe some things, and maybe this stuff really hits you, and maybe I'm just throwing some stuff at the wall that doesn't stick, but I'm just going to describe some things. So, a lot of times I work with people who are doormats and who are ready to find their fangs. And the idea is like, they come to me, they say, Steve, it's very hard for me to negotiate on my own behalf, very hard for me to feel like I deserve to be here too. And my normal progression starts with, okay, are you afraid of being a burden? Are you afraid of conflict? Are you afraid of being yelled at? Are you afraid of being the one who does the yelling? And most of the time they say, especially yes to all of them, but especially to that last one. I'm afraid of being the cause of someone else's distress. Now, maybe you're not resonating with that, but the idea is a lot of people do. Being the cause of someone else's distress, even when I know that distress is less than mortal. It's not actually going to kill the person. Maybe the idea is I have this belief I'm never supposed to be a burden on anyone ever, or my needs aren't as important as everyone else's, or everyone else deserves here to be here except for me. Whatever the negative belief is, maybe it's something like that, and it's then leading to I can't say no, I can't advocate for myself. So, if that's the case, we go back to the personality traits: agreeableness and openness. Agreeableness. You're allowed to be here too. And yes, you can say, I want to keep my relationships very calm, very peaceful, very connected. But one of the things you might have trouble with or might have never experienced was an actual fight that leads to resolution, that leads to a better relationship. A lot of times I will work with couples or other individuals and say, it sounds like you could use a fight that then leads to proving that you can have an argument, have a disagreement, and the person that you're with will still be there. That family member, that friend. For example, several of my clients this week in particular, actually within the last 3 weeks, I've gotten them to say something critical about me in my process as a counselor. I'm doing this for a reason. And most of them said something like, Steve, can I instead just punch myself in the balls right now? And I said, no, you actually have to criticize me. It's like, oh, the idea of causing some criticism, even in a controlled manner, even for clinical reasons, even because your therapist is telling you to, is causing so much distress. Why? Because you don't want the relationship to end or be bad or whatever the hell. Makes sense. But I've gotten got 3 out of the 4 of them to do it. And so far, everything's been good. And afterwards, they said, oh, I can actually be expressive about something, maybe even something I don't like. It doesn't negatively affect the relationship. Now, that was a therapeutic relationship. So, no, it's not the relationship you'd have with a potential romantic partner or your family member or your BFF. But the idea is I can be a little disagreeable when necessary, and everything's going to be fine. It's a novel concept for some people because some people have never experienced that. And maybe that resonates with you. Maybe you've never actually been able to experience having a healthy enough relationship with someone, or having the relationship or being with a type of person who can actually engage in forgiveness, can engage in some level of, hey, we can have an argument, but our relationship is so strong that we come back maybe even better than how we started. And I know a lot of people who say something like, Steve, if I ever did that, any little bit of criticism or saying no, that person would be gone from my life forever. It's like, good. You probably don't want them in your life in the first place. Depending. But I hope everyone is tracking in regards to what we're talking about here, being able to negotiate on your own behalf when appropriate, when necessary, and being able to say, even though this hurts me to cause some distress to you, I got to say no, or I got to say this is a line you're not crossing, even if you get upset by it. And if you can, great. If you can't, that might be something to work on with your therapist. So now let's take it once again back to agreeableness and openness. Openness. We're not going to spend too much time on this one, or at least the psychological component. Are you open to new things? And it's harder to parse that than you would think. A lot of times people will say, yes, I am open to new experiences, but I am not open to changing the way my relationships happen. As in, I'll be the first person on that newly built roller coaster or at that avant-garde restaurant that serves bugs or something. But me trying to change things with family, never. Or me trying to change things with a romantic partner, never. So a lot of times there's this idea I'm open to certain experiences or changes, but my core relationships I really want set in stone. And it makes sense. We want stability because we feel safer with it, generally. But the problem is sometimes there's a problem with a relationship or expectations in a relationship that don't serve you or don't serve you anymore, and you can't express it. And that's when it becomes the devil you know is still the freaking devil. As in, hey, if we're saying yes to things that we don't like because that's how we've always done them, and that now, the pressure's building, the resentment, and you can say, well, I'm afraid of rocking the boat. Well, the boat's already rocking. The boat's on fire, actually. We can either try to put this thing out, jump onto another boat or something, but one day this resentment's going to explode. So, in regards to openness, let's actually take a step back. In regards to both the openness and agreeableness, a lot of times I see clients who say, I have a hard time saying no because I'm afraid of the unknowns. I don't know how this other person is going to react. I don't know if this person is going to blow up, start crying, leave me forever, but I'm pretty sure that whatever happens, I'm going to feel bad about it and judge myself. If you are a person with a very strong internal judge, with a lot of depression, a lot of self-judgment, and even judgment for things outside of your control, like another person's emotional state and content, a lot of times the idea is like all your judge is trying to do is keep you safe in the only way it knows how to. But we need to challenge it a little bit. Hey, I get it. You're trying to kick my own ass so I can either be better or I can be safe. But I need to let go of how this other person reacts to me when I say no. Not how I say no, but if I say no appropriately. So, not to get too confusing, but one thing at a time. If you're afraid of someone else's reaction to you, setting boundaries, negotiating on your own behalf, saying my needs are valid too, that already tells you something. That already tells you that you're afraid of this person, whether it's a family member, romantic partner, whatever. That's probably not a good thing. If we're that afraid, we're probably already in a relationship that isn't ideal yet. The next part is we have to assess logistical safety. If I tell my romantic partner no about something and he beats my ass, maybe that already says, okay, this is not a person I should be with. And maybe that's tough to hear right now for some of you, but the idea is if your inability to say no, set boundaries, keep yourself safe is because someone in your life is an abusive person, then logistically we need safety first. Maybe that means leaving the person. Maybe that means getting other options, help, domestic violence shelters, getting your name off the mortgage, whatever it is, first. So first things first, keep yourself safe. And if we need more help with that, contact Pineapple Support, contact other people who can help you with this. I'm here to help you plan that as well, if anyone needs help with that. So, logistically, safety. Emotionally, be aware that your internal judge is trying to keep you safe. But then there's this idea, well, Steve, I have a hard time saying no because I don't view my needs as important as everyone else's. I'd rather sacrifice or martyr myself for other people than to actually step up and say, I deserve to be here too. Excuse me. Now, some of you are saying, Steve, I have none of that problem. And hey, that's cool. That's fine. But someone might be listening and saying, yes, that definitely resonates with me. If that is your problem, then we need to start challenging those negative beliefs about you not deserving to be here too, logically and emotionally, and seeing if it derives from trauma. And if it does derive from trauma, get some healing around it. Work with some trauma therapists and specialists. And then replacing it. I'm as valuable as everyone else. I deserve to be here too. I didn't ask to be born. Maybe my worth is intrinsic just for being human. And maybe even as I'm saying this right now, some resistance or some self-judgment is coming up. That's okay. I'm not saying it's easy. And those are just surface level affirmations. But the idea is we're going to have to start challenging this. So just saying no. There's some things in the way, including negative beliefs about self-judgment, fear of maybe causing that other person distress, and maybe the idea is if I cause the other person distress, I get to blame myself and feel guilty about it. Now, this is not anything anyone wants to hear, but I'm going to do it anyway. If the thing you want is important enough or you need it enough, feel the guilt, feel the self-judgment, feel whatever you're feeling, and do it anyway. If the idea is, well, I'm going to break this person's heart, but I really, really need this, the idea is just say it. Yeah, might hurt the person, then you might feel guilt about it, but it might be really important to keep you safe or to keep your life on track or whatever it is. Now, it's easy for me to say this because I've already kind of gone through the gamut of these things. But the idea is, once again, you deserve to be here too. And just because you feel it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. We'll be talking about that in about 5-10 minutes. So let's take a quick step back. We talked about agreeableness. We talked a little bit about openness. I want to add another component here. FOMO. Before we were talking a little bit about the unknown or the fear of the unknown. I'm afraid of what might happen next. FOMO basically, and for those who don't know, it's an acronym that stands for fear of missing out. FOMO is basically saying, I'm afraid that I'll miss out on the unknown. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm afraid that there is something that's going to come my way, ask me to join it. And if I miss out, then everyone will have a great time except for me. Now, most of the time, this is more geared towards social interaction. So everyone else is having a party and I'm not invited. Everyone else is having a life that's better than mine. And I want that, but I don't think I can get it. There's a few different ways to kind of see where this is targeted. But in this particular case, I want to use FOMO as a how do I want to put this? I don't want to say a compulsion, but maybe some pressure. I feel a lot of pressure to say yes to everything because maybe you grew up like me, Catholic, repressed, and the idea is you are trying to make up for lost time. So if anyone says anything, even if I don't want to do it, really, I'm going to say I'm going to do it anyway because I really need to either make up for lost time or engage in some behavior outside of my extremes. Why? Because I don't know, I'm getting out of my comfort zone. And hey, that's fine. I get people out of their comfort zone every day. But maybe we need to assess, is this actually coming from my desire to do that or to not disappoint the other person? Or maybe it is a compulsion and I literally am going towards extremes because maybe that's the only way I feel at this point. So I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you very quick. If I'm going too fast, slow me down. But FOMO, let's be aware that there's a lot of pressure, not only internally, but also this entire idea I need to put all the fancy stuff on the Instagram and showing I'm having a great life. Even if I don't really want to go to the club on a Friday night or a Thursday night or whatever it is, I'm going to go anyway. Otherwise, I don't know. People will think I'm boring. I'll think I'm boring. My friends will think I'm boring because they ask me, and if I say no, they won't ask me again. Maybe this is not true at all logically, or rephrase. Maybe these fears are not true in reality, and your friends are still going to ask you to hang out, and other people won't think anything negatively of you. But the emotional resonance or where it's coming from might be screaming in your ear. So let's be aware that sometimes the pressures we get from social media, the media in general, your friends, your family members, whoever, might be carried with us sometimes. So now let's tie this all together. Openness, agreeableness, FOMO. If I'm a person who's attached to you and I say, anyway, whether I'm your therapist, your friend, your romantic partner, your realtor, whatever role it is, and I say something and make a request that you don't actually want from me or want to fulfill, hey, let me borrow your car. No, my car is fine. I just want to borrow yours. It's like, wait, Steve, no, I'm not going to do that. That might be a little too much. You might be asking a little too much for me. I kind of need my car for things I don't know what you're going to do with it. I'm just using this as an example. Maybe you don't care about your car and you'll be like, Steve, yeah, take the keys. I don't give a crap. But I'm just using this as an example. There's my initial reaction. I can be mean about it. Well, you suck and I hate you. You've shown your true colors. I'm never going to talk to you again. Or B, I can be passive. So that's aggressive. That's clearly overtly aggressive. There's passive aggressive where I say, oh, that's fine, but I breathe the resentment and I try to stab you in the back some other way. And then there's maybe some true assertiveness, like, oh, okay, I don't see what the problem would be, but I understand you have your own desires and priorities, and I have no ill feelings that you don't want me to borrow your car. And then there's the kind of passive way where I just like pull away and don't do it, like basically just ignore you and maybe even abandon you and just like, screw you, I'm done. So aggressive, passive aggressive, assertive, abandon. Those are basically the 4 different ways a person can respond to anything. Now, if you're an agreeable person, there's really only one good win condition for you. It's assertive. It's the proof that I, as the person you're talking to, am okay, or at least okay enough to be able to handle things with you and be able to say, hey, this relationship is fine, even though you said no to me. So we're going to go down that road. If you say no to me, and I'm assertive and agreeable, excuse me, I want to make sure I'm saying this right. If you say no to me about something, and I can prove that I'm civil, that I'm assertive, that I'm able to continue to have a relationship with you, you feel safe, I feel safe, that connection remains. And that's what most people are actually looking for. The problem is no one teaches this stuff. No one teaches good assertive communication anywhere in adulthood except for specific trainings. And it definitely was not taught in my high school or grade school or anything else like that. In fact, I don't know where it's taught. But the idea is basically, oh, we can have a fight with a resolution, we can have a disagreement with a resolution, and we're all fine. We still feel safe in this relationship. Some of you listening might actually say something like, I've never heard about this before. In fact, thinking about that in any of my relationships seems alien or weird or just wrong. It's like, that's fine. I'm not saying it's not saying it's common. I'm just saying that maybe this is the one win condition you can have. So, if you're an agreeable person, you care about what other people think and care about your effect on them, the idea is I want to make sure that if I say no, the other person can be assertive, civil, and we can maintain this relationship, which is great. Problem is, you can't control the other side. As I tell plenty of my clients, you have to be a good transmitter. The other side does not have to be a good receiver. Going back to that car thing, if I'm someone in your life and I say, hey, can I borrow your car? And you say no, you can say no because it's insured and I think I'm the only person who is like an actual on the paperwork insured driver. And I don't want anyone else. I don't even want a ticket in your name just in case. And I say, fine, we're good. But I could say, screw you, go die. I'm now angry, blah, 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 blah. And you could be very hurt because you care about our relationship to such an extent that you'll try to appease me. I see this a lot with my people-pleasing clients. I try to appease the other person to show that this main relationship can be maintained. Don't do it. Appeasement doesn't work. Now, you could say, one second. The messenger is also the message. So, once again, if you have a relationship with me, hey, can I borrow your car? And you say, no, fuck off. That is different than, no, Steve, that I don't want you touching my car. And here's the reasons why. There's a way to do this that is civil and assertive on your side as well. And this is also hard for some of my clients who are very good, very agreeable and people pleasers, because a lot of times there's a deer in the headlights kind of situation when conflict arises. And I don't want this to be offensive or be like, oh, you can't handle the heat or anything. A lot of people grew up in shitty households or maybe not so great school systems or wherever the hell. And the idea is like, if conflict happens, if a raised voice happens, they immediately freeze. And that's okay, because that's your initial response to any sort of anxiety trigger. It's okay. I'm not giving you any crap for it. The idea, though, is that, oh, it's very hard to get the wording out. It's very hard to say no. And if the person asks why, it's very hard to get the expression of this is why, this is what I believe, this is what I'm trying to do to keep my car safe or keep me from, breaking insurance laws or whatever the hell it is. And most of the time, actually, you don't even know any of that beforehand. It's not like my initial emotional reaction is no. And sometimes I have to think for 5 minutes or 5 hours or 5 days to think about, oh, why did I say no? What was the actual reasoning? Because a lot of times our intuition and our emotional, I want to say reaction, emotional truth, something like that, comes out way quicker before we realize the why. So the idea here is I'm hoping your relationships can also say, wait, give me some time to think about this. I want to respond to you, but I'm getting initial resistance right now. I want to say no, but if you have any, but I need some time to figure out like how to say no. Now, I do want to stop real quick and answer a question. Do you have any tips for self-regulation when you've got to say no but feel overwhelmed? Yes, actually, what a good segue. So we're in a conversation. I ask about the car. You say no. The idea is, oh, I'm first things first, awareness of everything. Not awareness of everything. Awareness is everything. Stop, say, I'm really anxious right now. Maybe you say that out loud to the person you're talking to. Maybe you just say it to yourself internally, but then you say, wait, this is what I'm feeling. Before I go any further, before we continue this conversation, I just need to acknowledge this feeling first. And if you want to say, wait a minute, I'm overwhelmed by anxiety right now, that's when you say, hey, Steve, old buddy, old pal, love of my life, notary I just met 5 minutes ago, Give me 5 minutes, give me 10 minutes. Let me talk to you later. I'd like some time to think about it. I'll be right back. I'm a big fan of breaks. I'm a big fan of saying, give me a minute. I just need to take a step back and breathe for a second. Now, if the person you're talking to doesn't respect that break, doesn't respect that request, that tells you something about them. And maybe it tells you something about that relationship with them. The idea being, yeah, this person doesn't really seem to respect my boundaries or my requests. So what did I say? Awareness, ask for a break. I always like to go slow down. The idea is like, okay, before I answer you, let me take a break. Then when you come back, say, well, this is what I'm feeling right now. I'm feeling really anxious and overwhelmed by this question. And I think I'm overwhelmed because, Steve, you asked me for a request that I don't feel comfortable answering yes about and giving you my car keys. But I'm also really concerned that you'll be mad at me if I say no. Notice how the way I talked right now is way slower than this cadence that I've been doing in this presentation. Let me do it again. Well, Steve, I like talking with you, and this is what I'm feeling. I'm feeling very overwhelmed. I even go slower than this. I'm feeling very overwhelmed. What I need before we go any further is a hug and just a reassurance that we can probably get through this without it like raised voices or starting a fight or being this huge battle or you abandoning me. So, awareness, take a break, go very slow, and then express it. If you are with a person who you feel safe with, and it has to be actually safe, not someone you're actually terrified of, but feel safe enough to have a conversation, maybe an in-depth conversation, maybe an emotionally messy conversation. The idea is like express exactly what you're feeling in the moment. I feel overwhelmed. I feel anxious. I'm afraid of disappointing you. I don't want you to resent me or hate me. And if you really want to be vulnerable, I don't want you to resent me and hate me because this is what happened in my upbringing. This is how I saw my parents fight. This is how I saw my parents split. Whatever the traumas were that led to this. But once again, you really have to trust them. If you don't trust them to that extent, self-regulation. Once again, take a break, pull yourself away from that situation if you can. Take a deep breath. And a lot of times, if you have the time and space, I don't want to put this. I'm a big fan of writing it out before talking about it. So if you have the space and the time, say, oh, I need to say no to this person. I'm afraid of saying no, but let me write the letter version of this first. If this was a letter, I want to make sure that this person understands I care about them, but I'm not going to give them certain things. And I don't want them to be upset with me, but I also know I need to protect my shit. And yeah, so that's what I do. I hope I answered that question. And I don't know how to press the button here. Yeah, cool. I think the Q&A is done. All right, cool. So let's take a step back. FOMO, assertiveness, not assertiveness, agreeableness, openness. There we go. And assertiveness. So assertiveness is good too. So let's say we are in a situation. So let's add some other factors here, actually, because that opened up a great conversational point. I'm a 35-year-old man and a veteran. Been trained to kill by the government and went to war. Yeah. My ability to face danger is probably going to be different than some of yours. There's a training component, there's an age component, there's a physical component, maybe a biological sex component, and a bunch of other things there. So if someone says, Steve, can you do this for me? And I say no, and they threaten to hurt me, my response might be different than some of yours. And that's okay. I'm not trying to say get into a dangerous situation. I'm not even trying to say beat someone's ass. But I am going to say, let's be aware that we need consequences for anyone who tries to go against the boundaries we instill. Boundaries without consequences are air. They're nothing. So, I don't know how to put answered here. Whatever. So, let's get away from me and this car thing. Let's say you have a family member. Let's say generally you like your family and you want to have a good relationship with them. But let's say they keep asking about some aspect of your life that you are not comfortable sharing with them. And let's say this person calls you up. Hey, how's things going with X, Y, and Z? And you say, you know what? I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to hear any more questions about it. And then you say, if you do this again, I'm going to remind you, because we're all mortal and we're all human and we're all imperfect and all of my memory's shot to hell, that's for sure. And the idea is like, you get one warning, and after that, I get to say, you're not going to talk to me for a while. So let's just say your sister calls you up and asks about your, I don't know, some potential romantic partner that had a messy breakup. You get to say, listen, sis, stop asking me about this person. But why? This is not a big deal. You're allowed to talk to you. I'd listen. This is a big deal for me. I don't want to talk about it. You get one more warning, and after that, you're on mute for a month. And if you keep talking about it afterwards, you're on mute forever. Now, that's a little extreme. But the idea is divorce, like full cut off, is always an option. Maybe it's an option that you might take too quickly sometimes, especially if you have avoidant attachment traits. But the idea is, hey, these are your consequences. If you push this boundary, your punishment is lack of connection with me. Now, maybe that hurts the punisher. Maybe that hurts the person who's setting the boundary and setting the consequence. Oh, I miss my sister so much. But I'll put it this way, it might break your heart, but A, you'll survive it. And B, maybe this consequence will help with the relationship in general. Now, once again, we want to make sure we're civil and assertive when we're doing this. We're not saying, you bitch, never talk to me again. We're saying, hey, this is how it affects me. I don't like this anymore. This is what I'm doing. I hope everyone's tracking on that. And I know it's hard, especially when you're in the moment. You just get pissed off real quick. But assertiveness, this is my boundary. This is what's happening. Now, other consequences. Worst consequences, if you cross a line, there might be a physical altercation, or we might need to get a protection order from the police, or we need legal involvement, or whatever it is. It really depends on the situation. It really depends on what's going on. But, and once again, my job is not to make you as heartless as I am. You don't have to be evil like Steve. But a lot of times my clients say, Steve, I can't set appropriate boundaries. I will feel so bad for the person I'm setting boundaries for, the person around the person I'm setting boundaries for. For example, recently had more than one client who's been assaulted. And I said, why aren't you pressing charges? The idea is if I do that, it's not going to be him who's hurt. He doesn't mind going to jail. It's going to be his mom, his grandma, his cousin, his whatever the hell. And I'm like, let him. Once again, that's a heartless answer. But the idea is, wait, why is your need for protection less than their need of connection? The idea, I'm not saying you have to stop thinking when you decide on a factor, but decide on a course of action, excuse me. But I am saying you deserve to be here too, with all the potential consequences that unfurl for other people's actions towards you. And it's very hard for some people to hear that. A, that they deserve to be here too, and B, that their needs might one day cause someone else some distress. And I'm not saying you're malicious for doing this, not at all. But I am saying if you don't engage in consequences, what might be happening is you're allowing yourself a lot of open vulnerabilities. I don't want to say you're planting a flag that says I'm a victim here and that attracts abusers, but there is an idea of if we don't have any consequences for actions of other people breaking our boundaries, the idea is that they're going to continue to do so. And someone who's listening to this right now said, I can endure it. I'm a badass. I'm a martyr. I can deal with it. Like, yeah, probably for a short period of time, even a long period of time. But one day you're going to get sick of it. And that day might as well be now rather than 10 years later. Now, I know I threw a lot at you guys, but let's take one step back. Consequences. Once again, consequences. Here's the boundary. You cross it. This is what happens. Expectations. This is the other side of saying no. It's the saying yes. Hey, this is what I need from you. If you want a relationship with me, this is what I need you to actively give. Even if even if only what you actively need is respect, maybe some time spent once a month, whatever it is. The idea being you're also allowed to say, if you want a relationship with me, I need to be fed, not just not hurt, if that makes sense. So, all right. Now, this could be a longer conversation about personality traits and assertiveness and things like that, but I want to end on, at least on this section, and we'll open up for questions. I want to end a little bit on the idea of safety, assertiveness, and being able to put your needs into words. There we go. If you are someone who has been maybe hyper traumatized or grew up in a household where you were told your needs don't matter or everyone else's needs are more important than yours, or worst of all, maybe you grew up in a chronic illness home where one member of the family was not doted upon but had a lot of priority put on them because they were going through some chronic illness or loss of a limb or whatever is going on, and you might have fallen by the wayside. If you are someone like that, perhaps you have a hard time actually being aware of what your needs are, what your boundaries are, where you want to say no, where you want to say yes, and putting them into words when you actually figure it out. If you have that problem, first things first, once again, awareness, the inner journey. What's actually going on? What am I feeling and why? If someone's like, hey, I got you a gift, and you start to feel resentment when you receive it, you have to ask yourself why. What does this gift come with? Does it come with obligation? Does it, back in your growing up when you were a kid, did anytime you get a gift come with some expectation that now you have to perform to do something better to return the favor? If it did, then you get to say, wait, I'm feeling this way because of my past or because of my present or because of X, Y, and Z. Hey, honey, I appreciate the gift. I'm going to accept this because I recognize that my resentment in this moment is just my brain trying to protect itself. Please do me a favor. Let's not do gift giving until I see my counselor and get some healing around this obligation thing about gift giving. Now, I'm saying this like it's easy to know how your mind works and how your immediate reaction to triggers work. It isn't. But this is just an example, and this is the path. I'm feeling something. I want to know why. And I then want to say, hey, what do I want to do about it? And if you need some help with that, pineapple support, come see me, come see the other counselors. So that's what I got for now. And I would like to open the chat to any other questions, or Leah, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Oh, Leah, do you have any questions?
I do actually. But first, I'd like to say thank you. That was very direct, as it should be. With
Yes.
terrified of saying no. Stephen is not.
Right.
I mean, during your presentation, you were very, very straightforward with your no's. What other ways can you say no that may not be quite so straight to the point, or cut and dry, or abrasive, or because it's great to set your own boundaries, and it's great to be confident to say no, but we do also have to be aware of the people we're saying no to.
Sure. And it looks like Adelaide would like to see the wheel, so I'm just going to pull this up while I answer that. So first things first, I've been watching a lot of sitcoms recently, so don't say no in a way that is confusing, because apparently you'll be in a relationship longer than you expected, and it'll be something that is dumb. I think that was a plot on news radio from the 90s, something like that. Anyway, the idea is like, if you need to say no in a less assertive, less aggressive way, less caustic, less whatever, I think the best answer is going to be find your own voice and express it in a way that, I don't want to say no without saying no, because that's dumb, but maybe express it emotionally first. This is what I'm feeling first, and this is why I don't want to do it. Just to go back to that car thing as an example. Well, Steve, I'm actually really concerned. It's tied up. No, you don't want to drive that thing. That someone recently asked me for money, and I'd be like, no, all my money's tied up. Can't give it to you, because I can't give it to anyone. It's not even mine. Maybe I can access some of it, but it's not going to be yours. Even that might come off as a little too acerbic. Let's say it just a smidge differently. I'm going to say it like, one second. I'm going to say it like this. If you need to say no, I think the best thing to do is just to let it down gently. Hey, I have to say no. I want to say yes because I care about you, but right now I just can't do it. Oh, I think I lost you. Adelaide says, yes, I like it. That's a good no. Cool. And awesome.
I muted myself because I was pouring tea.
No worries.
No, that was a very polite, gentle way of saying no.
Now, what other questions we got?
No, I think that was I mean, everything was very, very straight to the point, very very clear. And yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you for putting this on and allowing me to speak. I really appreciate it.
Of course. So next up we have Emma Martin, who is a life coach and owner of imperfectlyu.com, which is a monthly membership of support and coaching for those working in the adult industry. I've had a look at the website. It's absolutely wonderful. And she's going to be talking on the power of play. So we'll hear from Emma in just a few moments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You guys have a good one.